The pen felt heavier than it should have. Mahogany table, white paper, her smile already rehearsed. Sign, she said, like she was granting mercy. My lawyer's knee brushed mine under the table, begging without words. Fight. Don't do this. I nodded once, calm, composed, almost grateful. I signed everything over. She exhaled, victorious. That was the moment everyone decided I'd lost my mind. They didn't know the war had already ended. We met when she still asked questions instead of giving orders, back when her eyes sparkled with dreams, not demands. I loved that fire. I nurtured it. I supported her through every late night, every risk, every moment of doubt when she wanted to quit. She called me her rock. I believed her. We built a life that looked unbreakable from the outside. House with the perfect garden, cars that turned heads, vacations posted at golden hour. A daughter who giggled in my arms and called me her hero before she could even pronounce the word correctly. The early years felt like destiny, unfolding exactly as planned. We'd meet for lunch between her meetings, stealing 30 minutes to remember why we started this journey together. She'd text me updates about deals closing, victories at work, moments she wanted to share with someone who understood the climb. I was that person. I celebrated every win like it was my own, because in many ways it was. We were a team, or so I thought. Then success changed her gaze, changed her priorities. She started coming home late, smelling like expensive wine and someone else's ambition. She guarded her phone like it held nuclear codes. She stopped touching my shoulder when she passed by, stopped asking how my day went. I became furniture in my own home. I noticed the distance before I found the evidence. I always do. The small things disappeared first. The morning coffee she used to make for both of us became just hers. The questions about my work dried up. The inside jokes we'd built over a decade stopped landing because she wasn't listening anymore. When I'd try to kiss her goodbye in the morning, she'd turn her head just slightly so I caught her cheek instead of her lips. Subtle rejections that accumulated like debt. Our daughter noticed before I admitted it to myself. She asked me once why Mommy was always on her phone during dinner. Why Mommy didn't read bedtime stories anymore. Why Mommy seemed angry when we laughed too loud. I made excuses, protected the illusion, told her that Mommy was just tired from work. But children see truth that adults try to hide. She knew something was breaking. The evidence came on a Tuesday, a notification lighting up her laptop while she showered. A name I'd heard once at a company dinner. A message I couldn't unsee. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. Can't wait until everything is ours. I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I screenshotted it, saved it, archived it where she'd never think to look. I sat with that knowledge for 3 days, testing theories, watching patterns, confirming suspicions. She took calls in the garage now. She scheduled late meetings that didn't appear on the shared calendar we'd maintained for years. She bought new clothes, changed her perfume, started going to the gym at hours that made no sense. The affair wasn't just emotional. It was a full renovation of her life, and I was the structure being demolished to make room for the new design. When I confronted her 3 days later, she didn't deny it. She justified it. Said I'd become stagnant. Said I was safe, not exciting. Said our marriage had run its course and divorce was the mature decision. The words came out rehearsed, like she'd practiced this conversation in the mirror. Maybe with him, testing different versions until she found the phrasing that made her sound reasonable instead of cruel. Then came the proposition, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd already won. I want the house, the business accounts, the investments, she said, pausing like she was being generous. You can have the daughter. The way she said it, casual and dismissive, like our child, was a piece of furniture she didn't have room for in her new apartment. Like fatherhood was something she could delegate because it interfered with her new life. Something in me crystallized, not shattered, focused. That night, while she slept beside me like a stranger rehearsing her exit, I didn't plot revenge. I architected justice. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, calculating every move she'd make and every counter I needed in place before she made it. I called a different lawyer the next morning, not the one who believed in courtroom battles, the one who understood that wars are won in documents signed years before the first shot is fired. We met in his office that smelled like old books and expensive leather. He listened without interrupting as I laid out the situation, the assets, the affair, the demand. Then he smiled just slightly and said three words that changed everything. Check the trusts. We spent 6 hours that day reviewing every document we'd ever signed, the estate planning we'd done after our daughter was born, the tax structures we'd established when her business took off, the beneficiary designations that seemed routine at the time but now revealed themselves as the architecture of my defense. She'd signed everything I put in front of her back then, too busy closing deals to read the fine print. That impatience was about to cost her everything. We spoke carefully, strategically. Trusts, holdings, beneficiary designations, the invisible architecture beneath visible wealth. She'd always been too busy for the paperwork, always trusted me to handle the boring details. That trust was about to cost her everything. My lawyer walked me through every option, every scenario, every possible countermove she might attempt. By the time I left his office, I had a plan that would take 3 weeks to implement and a lifetime for her to understand. I gave her exactly what she demanded on paper: assets that gleamed in the light, liabilities that hid in the fine print. Then I moved with surgical precision. I restructured the trusts we'd established years ago for estate planning, documents she'd signed without reading because she was too focused on her next deal. I adjusted voting rights, modified control provisions, appointed a new primary beneficiary. Not myself, our daughter. Every modification was legal, documented, filed properly with banks and institutions that didn't ask questions when paperwork arrived from established accounts. I worked through lunch breaks, stayed up after our daughter fell asleep, coordinated with accountants and trustees who understood exactly what was happening without me having to explain the betrayal behind it. They'd seen this before. The spouse who mistakes cooperation for weakness, the partner who confuses silence with surrender. I documented everything methodically. Screenshots, saved messages, time-stamped emails, bank statements showing unexplained expenditures, hotel charges on credit cards I wasn't supposed to see, dinner reservations for two at restaurants we'd never been to together, gifts purchased that never made it home. Every piece of evidence organized chronologically, cross-referenced, backed up in 3 separate locations she'd never access. Not for the courtroom, for insurance, for leverage if she ever tried to rewrite history, for the moment she inevitably claimed I was the problem, that I'd driven her away, that she'd had no choice but to seek happiness elsewhere. I'd have proof, timestamps, documented patterns that showed premeditation. This wasn't a mistake. It was a strategy, and I was documenting her strategy while implementing my own. I let her think I was falling apart. Let our friends witness my supposed decline. Let her tell people I'd given up, that I was making it easy. I stopped arguing about her late nights, stopped asking questions about her schedule, became agreeable, compliant, defeated in every visible way. She interpreted this as victory. I knew it as camouflage. Men like me, the ones who stay quiet, were always underestimated. It's our greatest advantage. Society teaches loudness as strength, aggression as power, but real power is patience. Real strength is knowing when to appear weak. I'd learned that in business, watching competitors celebrate too early while I waited for the right moment to move. This was no different. The stakes were just infinitely higher. She started moving her boyfriend into our narrative before the papers were even filed. Brought him to events, introduced him as a colleague, tested the waters of public acceptance. She was already building her next chapter, confident I was just a footnote she'd edited out. I watched it all with the patience of someone who knew the ending. Watched her hold his hand in parking lots when she thought no one was looking. Watched her light up for him in ways she hadn't for me in years. It should have hurt more than it did. Maybe I'd already grieved the marriage. Maybe I'd known for longer than I admitted that the woman I loved had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. The betrayal was real, but the surprise was gone. I was mourning a ghost, a version of her that might never have existed outside my hopes. Our daughter asked me once during this period why I seemed sad. We were having breakfast, just the two of us because her mother had already left for an early meeting. I told her I was just tired. She looked at me with those huge eyes that saw too much and said, "You can tell me the truth, Daddy. I'm not a baby." She was 6 years old and already learning that adults lie to protect feelings. I hugged her and promised that no matter what happened, she'd always have me. She didn't know yet how much that promise would mean. By the time the final hearing arrived, she was radiant. New dress, new energy, new man waiting in a car outside with the engine running. She sat across from me, barely able to contain her satisfaction. My lawyer whispered one last time, voice urgent. "We can still fight this. We can expose everything." He had the folder ready, the affair documented with precision. The evidence that would destroy her reputation, damage her career, poison the well she was so excited to drink from. "No," I said. "Quiet. Absolute. Sign it." He hesitated, then slid the papers forward. I signed each page without hesitation, my hand steady, my face blank. She smiled wider than I'd seen in years. Relief, triumph, the expression of someone who believed they'd outsmarted everyone in the room. She actually exhaled, like she'd been holding tension she could finally release. She'd won. She'd gotten everything. The hard part was over. Her lawyer looked pleased too. Easy victory, clean break, client gets what she wants without a fight. He probably charged her a fortune for negotiations that never happened. I wondered if he'd warn her to read the trust documents. I knew he wouldn't. Lawyers assume their clients understand what they're signing. That assumption was about to shatter. Then her lawyer opened the secondary folder, the one with the trust documents, the one she'd forgotten existed. He scanned the pages and his face changed. Color drained from his cheeks. His eyes darted between the papers and his client. He leaned toward her, whispering urgently. She waved him off at first, annoyed at the interruption of her victory lap. He whispered again, more insistent, pointed to specific passages in the document. Her smile faltered. Confusion flickered across her features. "What?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her lawyer cleared his throat and stood, addressing the mediator. "There's been a misunderstanding regarding asset control," he said carefully, choosing each word like he was defusing a bomb. "The primary trust, established in 2019, which holds the majority of the marital assets, names the minor child as primary beneficiary and controlling interest holder upon dissolution of marriage. Effective immediately." The room went silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing. She stared at her lawyer like he'd started speaking in ancient Greek. "That's not," she started, then stopped. Her brain was catching up to her ears, processing words that didn't match the reality she'd constructed. She turned to me, eyes wide. "You gave me everything," she said. "You signed it all over." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I did," I replied evenly. "You own it." A pause that stretched like elastic. "But you don't control it." The realization moved across her face, in slow motion. Like watching a building collapse floor by floor, the house she'd already promised to her boyfriend, the accounts she'd planned to drain, the investments she'd counted as her fresh start. All of it legally hers, functionally untouchable. All of it answering to a trust controlled by our daughter until she turned 25, managed by trustees I'd carefully selected. Trustees who understood exactly what she'd done. She looked at our daughter, sitting quietly in the corner with my mother, coloring in a book without a care in the world. Really looked at her for the first time in months. The child she'd been willing to hand over like paperwork. The child who now held the keys to everything she'd schemed to take. Our daughter glanced up, felt the attention, smiled at her mother with innocent love. She didn't understand the weight of that moment, the irony of it. "But that's," she stammered, "that's not legal. You can't just—" Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that was equal parts comfort and restraint. "It's completely legal," he said quietly. "You signed the trust documents yourself. 6 years ago." He slid the papers across the table. There was her signature next to mine, dated 3 months after our daughter was born. She'd signed them in the hospital parking lot, anxious to get back to work after maternity leave. Hadn't read a single page. She tried to speak. Her mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out but a small, broken sound. Her new life, her grand plans, her victory, all of it evaporating in real time. She'd won the battle and lost the war, and she was only just realizing it. The man outside in the car, the one she'd promised a life of luxury with, was about to learn she'd promised something she didn't actually have. I stood, buttoned my jacket, picked up my briefcase. Our daughter ran over to me, and I lifted her into my arms. She wrapped her small hands around my neck, trusting, innocent, unaware she'd just inherited an empire. I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife one last time. Her face was ash-pale, her hands shaking as they gripped the table edge. "Enjoy what you asked for," I said calmly. "Take excellent care of it all. Just remember, you're managing it for our daughter now. Every decision you make, every dollar you spend, it all gets reviewed by the trustees." I paused at the door. "Oh, and they'll need monthly reports. Detailed ones." I watched the words land, watched her understand that she hadn't gained freedom. She'd accepted a job she couldn't quit, answering to people who knew what she'd done. I didn't wait for her response. Didn't need to. The look on her face, the collapse of her certainty that was enough. My daughter asked if we could get ice cream on the way home. I said yes, absolutely, whatever flavor she wanted. We left the building together, her chattering about her day, me listening like it was the most important conversation in the world. Behind us, I heard raised voices. Her and her lawyer. The boyfriend who'd been waiting, probably wondering what was taking so long. People ask if I feel guilty about what I did. If I regret not warning her, not fighting fair. I don't lose sleep over it. Fair would have been her honoring our vows. Fair would have been her choosing our family over her ego. I didn't create the battlefield. I just refused to lose on it. She wanted to play games with people's lives. I made sure the game had consequences. My daughter sleeps peacefully every night, secure in a home that's truly hers, with a father who will never abandon her for something shinier. I sleep well too, better than I have in years. Betrayal taught me something love never could. Loyalty isn't weakness. Silence isn't surrender. And sometimes the quietest move is the most devastating. You don't need to raise your voice to end a war. You don't need to throw punches or make threats. You just need to know the rules better than your opponent does. You need to plan 3 moves ahead while they're still celebrating their first victory. And you need to walk away after you've already won, leaving them to realize too late that they never had a chance. She calls sometimes, trying to negotiate, trying to find loopholes in documents she should have read years ago. I don't answer anymore. My lawyer handles it. Every conversation, every request, every desperate attempt to regain control, it all gets documented and filed. She wanted freedom from me. She has it. She's free to manage assets she can't access, free to live in a house she can't sell, free to explain to her boyfriend why everything she promised him exists only on paper. The first few weeks after the hearing, she called constantly, 20, 30 times a day. Voicemails that started angry and ended desperate. Texts that blamed me, then begged me, then threatened me. My lawyer advised documenting everything but responding to nothing. Silence is a weapon when deployed correctly. Each unreturned call was another brick in the wall between her chaos and my peace. I heard through mutual friends that the relationship didn't last. Apparently, when he realized she didn't actually control the wealth she'd bragged about, his interest evaporated. Funny how that works. People who love you for what you have tend to disappear when they realize you never really had it at all. He left 3 months after the hearing. Left her with the house she couldn't sell, the cars she couldn't trade, the life she'd fought for that turned out to be a beautiful prison. She tried dating again, from what I understand. Hard to build trust, though, when your story includes abandoning your child for assets you don't control. Word spreads in our circles. People talk. The woman who left her family and got outplayed becomes a cautionary tale at dinner parties. I never contributed to that narrative. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. My daughter asks about her mother sometimes. I never speak badly about her. I won't poison that relationship, no matter what was done to me. I tell her that mommy is busy with work, that she loves her, that adult things are complicated. When she's older, when she can understand, she'll have access to everything. The trust documents, the messages, the timeline of events. She'll be able to make her own judgments about who protected her and who treated her like an afterthought. Until then, we have our routine. Breakfast together every morning, no phones at the table. Homework at the kitchen counter while I make dinner. Bedtime stories where I do all the voices, even the princess ones that make her laugh until she hiccups. Weekend adventures to museums and parks and anywhere she points to on a map. I'm building memories she'll carry forever, the kind that matter more than any trust fund. We went to the zoo last month. She wanted to see the elephants. We stood there for an hour, just watching them move together as a family unit. She said they looked happy. I told her they were because they took care of each other. She looked up at me and said, "Like us, Daddy." Like us, I agreed. In that moment, standing in front of the elephant enclosure with my daughter's hand in mine, I knew I'd made every right decision. The money didn't matter. The house didn't matter. This mattered. The business I built, the one she wanted to absorb into her empire, I'm growing it differently now. Not for profit alone, for legacy. My daughter will inherit something more than assets. She'll inherit values, work ethic, the understanding that people are never disposable. She'll know that her father fought for her quietly, strategically, completely. I brought her to the office once. She sat in my chair, spun around, pretended to take important phone calls. My employees loved her. She handed out business cards with her name on them that I'd had made as a joke. Chief Happiness Officer, they said. She took the role seriously, making sure everyone smiled, asking if they needed cookies. They did need cookies. She convinced me to install a cookie jar in the break room. Morale improved. I've started dating again, carefully. I'm not in a rush. I'm pickier now about character, about consistency, about how someone treats service workers and talks about their ex. I watch for red flags I ignored before, patterns I rationalized away because I was in love with potential instead of reality. I won't make the same mistake twice. I met someone recently, a teacher at my daughter's school. We started talking at a parent event, discovered we both loved old movies. She asked me to coffee. I said yes, but I was honest about my situation. Told her I had a daughter who came first. Told her I was divorced and it was complicated. She said complicated was fine as long as there was honesty. That mattered to me more than she probably realized. We've been on 4 dates. Nothing serious yet, just conversations that feel easy. She makes me laugh. She asks questions and actually listens to the answers. She met my daughter once, briefly, completely by accident at a bookstore. They talked about their favorite books. My daughter approved. That matters more than anything. My ex-wife's career is stalling. Not because I sabotaged it. I didn't have to. Turns out when you're known for leaving your family for personal gain, when your colleagues whisper about your choices, opportunities dry up. Reputation is currency, and hers devalued the moment people realized what she'd done. She made the calculations, ran the numbers, decided the trade-off was worth it. Now she's learning that some costs don't appear on spreadsheets. I saw her once, accidentally, at a restaurant 6 months after the divorce finalized. She was alone, working on a laptop, drinking wine that was probably expensive. She looked tired, older. The fire I'd fallen in love with had been replaced by something that looked like regret. She saw me before I could leave. Our eyes met. She started to stand, maybe to approach, maybe to apologize. I shook my head once, not angry, just final. She sat back down. I left. That was the last time I saw her in person. I don't celebrate her struggles. I don't feel vindicated by her pain. I feel nothing, which might be the clearest sign that I've healed. She's a stranger now, someone I used to know, someone I built a life within another timeline. That person is gone. Maybe she never existed. Maybe I loved a performance, a carefully curated version that dissolved when it was no longer convenient to maintain. The house is different now. Lighter. My daughter's artwork covers the refrigerator. We have dance parties in the living room. We eat breakfast for dinner when we feel like it. We laugh about ridiculous things. It's not the picture-perfect life we pretended to have before. It's better. It's real. It's ours in a way it never was when we were performing happiness for an audience. My lawyer told me recently that my ex-wife tried to challenge the trust again, hired a new legal team to find loopholes. They found nothing. The documents are airtight, reviewed by 3 separate firms before I ever signed that final paper. She can spend her money fighting, but the outcome won't change. The law is clear. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. Each attempt to challenge the trust costs her money she can't really spend freely. The irony isn't lost on me. She's paying lawyers with funds that need trustee approval to fight trustees who will never approve anything that benefits her over our daughter. It's a cycle of futility she can't seem to stop. Maybe she can't accept that she lost. Maybe she needs to keep fighting because stopping would mean admitting she destroyed everything for nothing. I think about that moment in the conference room sometimes. The look on her face when she realized what I'd done. The collapse of her certainty. The understanding that she'd been outplayed. I don't take pleasure in it exactly, but I don't regret it either. It was necessary. It was protection. It was the only way to ensure my daughter's future couldn't be gambled away by someone who'd already proven she'd sacrifice anything for herself. Justice isn't always loud. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's a signature on a document no one read closely enough. Sometimes it's a trust established years before anyone knew it would matter. Sometimes it's the quiet satisfaction of knowing you protected what mattered most while everyone assumed you'd surrendered. My daughter will grow up knowing her father fought for her, not in court, not in public, but in the ways that mattered. She'll know that when everyone else counted him out, he was already 10 steps ahead. She'll know that strength isn't volume, it's strategy. That winning isn't about who fights loudest, it's about who plans best. I signed those papers without hesitation because I knew what they really meant. I gave her everything she asked for because I understood what she was actually getting. Control is an illusion when the foundation belongs to someone else. Ownership is meaningless when you can't make a single decision without approval. She wanted freedom. She has it. Freedom to watch everything she schemed for remain just out of reach. Freedom to explain to herself how she ended up with nothing despite winning everything. Freedom to realize, too late, that the man she underestimated was the only one who ever really understood the game. I don't think about her much anymore. I'm too busy living, actually living, not performing life for an audience. I'm too busy being the father my daughter deserves. Too busy building something that matters, something real, something that can't be taken away by someone else's selfishness. The pen felt heavy that day because I knew what I was signing. Not surrender, victory. The kind that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't need witnesses or applause. The kind that waits patiently for the other person to realize they never had a chance. I walked out of that conference room a free man, free from someone who saw me as an obstacle, free from a marriage built on lies, free to raise my daughter in truth, in love, in the kind of home where people don't abandon each other when something shinier appears. She's 7 now, my daughter. She tells me I'm her best friend. She says she wants to be smart like me when she grows up. She doesn't know yet what I did for her, what I gave up and gained in the same moment. Someday she will. Someday she'll read these words and understand that love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's strategic. Sometimes it's signing papers everyone thinks make you weak. Sometimes it's surrendering everything to ensure what matters most can never be lost. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the house, not the satisfaction of watching someone realize they played themselves. The victory is in the small moments. Reading bedtime stories, making pancakes on Sunday, hearing her laugh at my terrible jokes, being there consistently, completely, without distraction or regret. My ex-wife wanted everything. She got it. All of it, every asset she demanded, every piece of the life we built. And it means nothing. It's a cage made of her own greed. She's trapped in a victory that feels like defeat. Meanwhile, I'm free. My daughter is protected. And we're building something she can never touch, no matter how many lawyers she hires. I don't need revenge. I already won. She just doesn't realize she helped me do it. Every demand she made, every ultimatum she delivered, every time she underestimated me, she was handing me the tools to secure my daughter's future. I just had to be patient enough to use them. So when people ask if I have regrets, if I wish I'd fought differently, I tell them the truth. I fought exactly the way I needed to. Quietly, carefully, completely. And when the dust settled, when the papers were signed and the doors were closed, I walked away with everything that mattered. The rest is just noise. Assets and accounts and possessions that mean nothing compared to the sleepy voice of my daughter saying, "I love you, Daddy," before she drifts off to dream. That's worth more than every dollar in every trust. That's the prize I fought for. That's what I won. And she'll never take it from me. The documents make sure of that. The law protects it. But more than that, the bond I've built with my daughter, the trust she has in me, the security she feels knowing I'll always be there. That's something no document can create and no betrayal can destroy. I look at her sometimes when she's sleeping. The way she curls up with her favorite stuffed elephant, the one she's had since she was born. The way her eyelashes rest on her cheeks, the peace in her face. That's what I fought for. That's what I protected. And I do it all again, exactly the same way, without a moment's hesitation. The world sees a man who gave up everything in a divorce. I see a father who won everything that matters. Perspective is everything. Victory looks different depending on where you're standing. I'm standing in my daughter's bedroom, watching her dream, knowing she's safe and loved and protected. That's victory. That's the only score that counts. The signature that everyone thought ended everything actually changed everything. It secured a future. It protected innocence. It proved that sometimes the quietest move is the most powerful. And it taught my daughter, even though she doesn't know it yet, that love means putting someone else first, even when it looks like you're losing. I didn't lose. I won. And every morning when she wakes up and runs to hug me, I'm reminded that I made the right choice. The only choice. The choice that a real father makes when everything is on the line. That's the story. That's the truth. And that's why the pen felt so heavy that day. Because I knew I was signing away everything that didn't matter to protect everything that did.